bless you. It is so good to be connected with you. It's so good to speak with everyone all over the world. It's a very exciting day for me. I am talking about my rock solid book that I have written, A Manual for a Passionate Marriage. I'm an author from Niles, Michigan. I have written 4 books, The Vellum Papers, which we'll talk about at another time. It is a novel for children and young people. I Smell Peppermint. It is an exhortation on prayer. I have a poetry book called Passion Under the Purple Parasol, and it is from Dreams and Visions. Today we're going to take a look at my Manual for a Passionate Marriage, which is rock solid. A little bit about me. I have been married for over 41 years to Pastor Carlton Burrell. We have children and grandchildren. We are retired school teachers, and we have been counseling and talking to couples and singles for over 30 years now. We have had an annual marriage retreat every year. So one day the Lord spoke to me about writing a book. I hadn't planned on it, but I heard that voice, and here it is, rock solid. I'll begin with the very beginning. A peep at the inside. It says, prepare your bed, your bath. You're barely there where someone will follow you. You can make him forget. Forget what? Whatever it is you want him to forget. You can make him remember. Remember what? Whatever it is you want him to never forget. The power is yours. You can wield it if you want. Go to it. Stubborn spirits don't do well in the arena of love. Meekness and quietness reign in the area of relationships. If you can submit, you can succeed in love. We're living in a day where a lot of marriages are struggling. We do have many marriages that are doing well, and some people have it down pat. They have minimal problems. But there are others who struggle. And for those who struggle, and for those who are doing well and just want to be refreshed, this is a great book for you. This book is available on my website, Gail Burrell, B-U-R-R-E-L, and the Gail is G-A-Y-L-E, GailBurrell.com. I'm also at Gail Burrell Facebook. You can order these books as ebooks, or you can follow the directions to order a hard copy. They are available. I'm just going to turn through it and just do an impromptu presentation, letting you know what's in here. I'll start with the table of contents. I'll let you know the chapters that I have. The first one is the need to become more spiritual. 2, the oversexed versus the undersexed. Chapter 3 is mental bailout. Chapter 4, rushing into marriage. 5, infidelity. 6, workaholics. 7, the need to become more loving. 8, valuing the vows. 9, pain management. Chapter 10, the gifted and the twisted. 11, unconditional love. 12, seasons for change. 13, falling in love. 15, problem solving. Chapter 16, a happy marriage. Chapter 17, total acceptance. Chapter 18, special addendum to total acceptance. Chapter 19, keeping the love alive. Chapter 20, sex and romance. And then there are references. I have graphs in this book. And this book is chock full of information that's going to help you in your relationship. In these last days, people that write and counsel, sometimes they have not been successful. And sometimes they are struggling themselves. But I think it's a better situation when you can look into information that's being dispersed by someone that has been able to weather the storms. This is important. The Word of God says, a wise man will hear and become wiser. So if you want to increase your wisdom on today, stick around. I'm going to read little snippets from each chapter, and then I'm going to expound on them. The first one, the need to become more spiritual, it says, I feel that before people get married, there is work that needs to be done individually. When people pay attention to their own shortcomings, it minimizes the job of companions, neighbors, family members, and co-workers. Jesus preaches on the mountainside in Matthew 7:3. He asks, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is on thy own eye? In other words, why do you magnify the little thing in the person that is with you or next to you, and you're not dealing with the big thing that is troubling you? Why do you waste time analyzing and magnifying your partner's splinter when there's a tree trunk in your eye? That sounds comical, but no one is above self-introspection. And this is something that we have to do every so often, and it keeps us from being too hard on the other person. This scripture metaphorically illustrates the senselessness of a fault finder's attempt to correct something that he doesn't have the skill or wisdom to correct. So this keeps you from making the other person uncomfortable, and it keeps you from holding them back from who they really are, their creativity and their will to walk in the gifts that God has given them. You have to give people elbow room in relationships. You have to give them room to grow. Well, there's much information under that, and I'm going to go on to chapter 2. It says the oversexed versus the undersexed. Every now and then people unite that are grossly mismatched sexually. This can be a real challenge if one is not willing to compromise and meet their mate halfway. They must remember marriage is not just physical, it is also a meeting of the minds. In order to reach a mental bond, spouses have to be willing to work with their partner's conscience. When love is your impetus for being together, nothing should be able to separate you. And I have many helps for the oversexed versus the undersexed. Chapter 3 is called mental bailout. There are times in a marriage when a spouse feels their partner is annoying. You know, this happens. Perhaps they don't ever agree, and all of the conversations escalate to arguments. I hear this so much. Occasionally there's a great disparity in intelligence levels. One may feel the other talks over his head or her head, or it may simply be a lack of interest in whatever the partner feels is exciting for them. Whatever the case, the road often widens between a husband and wife when one has decided to shut down and end friendly communication with their partner. This disconnection is always a downhill exercise. If there is a separation verbally and mentally, it will end up being physical also. If not careful, these individuals also end up sleeping in separate rooms or on separate floors, and that's a critical point right there. You don't want to stop meeting consciously. You don't want to stop sharing thoughts, your happy times, your bad times. Your partner, your husband, your wife should be your best friend. And if you keep the communication lines open, that will be a very beautiful relationship. And there are many helps in chapter 3 about mental bailout. Chapter 4 is about rushing into marriage. And it says Hollywood marriages are notorious for being over as quickly as they get started. All of the emphasis is placed on a high-profile romance and a bombastic wedding announcement, replete with elaborate plans for a multi-million-dollar event. After the spectacle, the paparazzi quickly reports problems, separations, hence divorce. It's quite commonplace, but fame and fortune aren't the only culprits. We commoners have been known to rush in prematurely also. So we talk about those that are approaching marriage. Marriage is a very large undertaking, and there is no need to rush. If someone is rushing you, that is a red flag. That's a very bad sign. You need to get premarital consultation. And we have pastors that do this and also marriage counselors. But whatever the case, take your time. Make sure you have someone that is competent to talk to. Never rush into marriage. Chapter 5 is on infidelity. And it talks about cheating is a surefire way to end up in divorce court. People have always wanted to experience the grass on the other side of the fence. For some reason, it has always looked greener and more appealing. Some people have a roving eye. To him, other ladies seem to have more bounce in their step. She may feel it's the guys over there with the added bass in his voice. Whatever the case, excitement with something else always seems paramount. And we talk about infidelity, the ins and outs of it. Chapter 6 is on workaholics. And I think all families have a workaholic in them who struggles. Workaholics are good people out of balance. They're trying to do the right things, and sometimes they become a little over-dedicated to jobs and careers. There are roles to fill in marriage. You need to understand that marriage is a work in progress. You have to spend time on your relationship, or it's not going to work. It can't be just one person trying to do everything. After a while, they will become so overwhelmed and so depressed. Everyone, the both of you rather, have to be involved full-time in that relationship. That doesn't mean you're going to spend all the time together all the time, but it does mean that you're not going to ignore the fact that someone is waiting on you. So that is the workaholics chapter. The need to become more loving. That's chapter 7. And this is chock full of so much good information. I can't even go into that. But there are too many chapters to talk about. But the last chapter I'll mention today is the Gifted and Twisted, chapter 10. I could not forgo the opportunity to talk about people who have excelled greatly in their lives but were unable to achieve balance in marriage, family, and relationships with others. Money, power, and prestige are not synonyms for happiness, peace, and personal fulfillment. The funny thing about life is, it is full of labor. The preacher of Ecclesiastes tells us, believe it or not, if you work overtime and during sleep time on your craft and it becomes overwhelmingly successful, it won't necessarily spill over into the other areas of your life. that require your time also. So you may work your singing voice into a smooth, rippling effect, but when you walk off that stage, your toddler still wants to be held, played with, up close and personal for the rest of the evening. Bottles, burping, soiled diapers, colic must accompany the glitz and glam. For some, these two pictures are conflicting, and many find themselves unable to deal with everyday scenarios outside of the limelight. So we go on to express how it just has to be about balancing and time. There is so much in here, and there is so much to help you. I have gotten so much positive feedback from people all over the United States. People call me from as far as Colorado, just crying, saying, "Oh my goodness, I didn't know this book was so in-depth. It has helped me, and I'm going to make sure that all of my little children read this book." Because if I had had this book earlier in my life, I would have never been divorced. I have had a lady just wrote me from Virginia, and she was saying, "Oh my God, I bought this book years earlier and didn't read it, but I took it down and I have been just laughing and crying as I read this book." This book is from the Lord. He has truly inspired everything that I have written in here. There are many graphs. Here's a marriage thermometer, and it just tells you how to measure where you are right now in your relationship. There's also a threefold cord in here that demonstrates the analogy that the Lord gave about marriage. And it also is a revelation that the Lord gave me about that threefold cord. But here it is drawn for you. And it is truly going to be a blessing in your life when you realize that you are not in a marriage relationship alone, never alone. You have another force there with you. And when you learn how to pull from that force, your marriage will be strengthened and fortified. God bless you. I hope that you have taken it all in, and I hope that your marriage is successful. I'm praying for you. And let me know how you feel about it.